Thank you very much. I'm going to make two brief statements. One on the Prime Minister's comments yesterday in relation to job seeker, and I'm also going to make a comment on the fact that today is the last day that organisations can register or sign up for the redress scheme. What is required, and I'll start with the job seeker one. What's required from the Prime Minister and the Treasurer is certainty for the Australian people. Certainty around the future of job seeker in particular. The government has a report in its hands now on JobKeeper and job seeker. They are choosing not to release it until after the Eden Monaro by-election, and that is reprehensible. It is the view of the Labor Party that people who are on unemployment benefits, and there are now, we know, over 1.5 million of these people, should be given certainty about the future of what's going to happen in terms of that payment. We know that there are at least 12 applications for every available position. This was prior to the pandemic, and the pandemic is making this even more urgent. It is inappropriate that the Prime Minister knows what the report says in relation to the future of job seeker and job keeper, and is choosing not to make that public prior to the by-election. We are calling on the government to be very clear with the Australian people, particularly those people on job seeker, on what their future entails. We also believe that the base rate of job keeper must be improved or increased permanently. That has been Labor's position for a very long time, and it remains Labor's position. It is untenable for people to live on $40 a day. We know that there have been calls from both the business, the community and the NGO sector that this amount be increased. It is clear that $40 a day was a disincentive for people trying to get a job. In fact, it was an amount that didn't allow people to actually go out and apply and attend interviews for a job. So we are calling on the Morrison government to give certainty to people on JobKeeper and certainty to people on job seeker about what their plans are for the future. In September, at the end of September, we're being told that these two amounts will snap back to whatever the old amount was. This is not appropriate. And once again, I urge in the most ardent fashion possible that there be certainty given to people who are on unemployment benefits in this country. They deserve to know what their future is. They do not choose to be unemployed, but it is extremely difficult in the current circumstances to have any confidence in going forward, and the government knows what the answers are.
You've talked about the $40. Could you say what would be acceptable? What do you think the figure should be for job seeker?
Labor has not put an amount on what the future of job seeker would. I'll start again. Labor has not put an amount at this point on what the appropriate rate of job seeker is. We're saying very clearly, though, that the old amount of around $40 a day was inadequate. Clearly, at this point of the electoral cycle, we are saying absolutely to the government, it cannot snap back to the old amount. We have not put an amount ourselves on what it should be at this point of the electoral cycle.
Why is that? Why would you put any costings in place?
We want to know what the fiscal circumstances will be across the country closer to the next election, and we think that's the responsible thing to do.
But you must have a ballpark, at least a bracket you'd like to see around that.
The position of the Labor Party which has been consistent for many, many, many months now, is that it cannot go back to the old amount. We know from talking to people who were on what was called New Start that it was desperate circumstances where they had to choose between things like meals, food, and medical attention, and that is not appropriate. They certainly were not living with dignity. Labor's position is that we believe it should be an increased amount, well above what the $40 a day is, but we have not put a figure on that amount at this point.
What do you think about the Australian Council of Social Service, who said roughly around the 150 a fortnight to 350? What do you say to that?
Well, I've had many discussions, obviously, with ACOS, and they are a very important voice in this discussion. In fact, have led very much the discussion around the increase to the old New Start payment. They are going through processes at this point in time, as I understand it, to come to a view on what that amount should be. And I enjoy a very good relationship with ACOS and will continue to discuss this issue with them.
We heard from the Deputy Prime Minister this morning, who said that the date set for the JobKeeper review was set well before the Eden Monaro by-election. So why are you calling for it to be released if it was already, well known beforehand what this date would be?
Well, it just seems a bit too cute by half that the government has the review completed and they have the outcomes of the review available to them, yet they are choosing to release it after the Eden Monaro by-election. We don't believe that's appropriate, and the people of that part of the world deserve certainty, and that's why we are calling on the government to release the outcomes of that review.
Mr McCormack has also said that the JobKeeper of the future will be much more targeted. What do you say to that?
I heard the interview with Mr McCormack on Radio National this morning, where he talked about many things, including the future of the aviation industry in Australia. I think Mr McCormack knows very well the outcomes of the review, and I think he knows very well that the decent thing to do is to give certainty to people in Eden Monaro.
On the redress scheme, can you go through what's happening
Sure.
today?
So I'll speak about redress now. Today is the 30th of June, and it is the final day where organisations can sign up to be included in the redress scheme. We know that there are over 100, closer to 200 organisations that have still not signed up. This is deeply concerning because people who have claims against those organisations that have not signed up cannot have their redress finalised. People are unwell, people are getting older, and Labor encourages the government in the strongest possible terms to name and shame and also consider further funding for the organisations that have not signed up. We also encourage the government to put their tax deductibility on the table as part of the measures to get them to participate in doing the moral thing, the right thing, and that is sign up to the scheme. We have called also for an early release of payments to people, particularly people that are getting older and people that are unwell. I have spoken to many people who have interfaced with the redress scheme to talk about their distress, to talk about how difficult they have found it. Labor will support the government in naming and shaming those organisations that have not signed up and also considering future funding and tax deductibility for those organisations that have yet to sign up. We understand, particularly from reports this morning, there are some organisations, particularly larger sporting organisations, that will get a 6-month reprieve. and we understand that. But organisations had a very long time, 5 years in fact, to sign up, and those that haven't done it by the end of the day should be named and should be shamed.
What impact do you think it will have to have them named and shamed?
Well, it would put on the public record those organisations that have a claim against them that have not or have chosen not to sign up. Clearly, there will be some organisations that may not exist anymore, and there may be some organisations that are considering their financial viability. But we know that the government and there are arrangements in place for payment of last resort. People who have been wronged in the past as children, sexually assaulted and abused in these organisations, by these organisations, deserve redress, and we are determined to obviously work with the government, but to call out the government. Tough talk is not enough. There has to be action and consequences for organisations that have not signed up.
So those organisations who haven't signed up, despite this really significant pressure, what will this step of naming and shaming achieve? What do you think that will, long-lasting impact will be?
The long-lasting impact of naming and shaming organisations that have not signed up, it will forever be on the public record that they have not done the morally right thing and sign up, despite the fact that there are claims against those organisations. Some of these organisations are quite big outfits, and it just astounds me that they haven't signed up, or they haven't at least entered into some discussion with the government on what their circumstances are. They do not deserve to be hidden. They do not deserve to not have their names out there in the public. So the public, and in particular those people that have claims against them, understand what the circumstances are.
Have you been told by any of them why they haven't signed up?
I haven't been told why they haven't signed up. I am aware of a number of large organisations that have signed up in the last little while. I congratulate those organisations for doing the right thing. For those organisations that have not done the right thing, you have but half a day to sign up.